Hi guys, welcome back to yet another fun DIY sailboat refit weekend here aboard Athena. It's Friday afternoon, but it's not an ordinary Friday afternoon, and we'll get back to the DIY stuff in just a few seconds. Now the reason today isn't just an ordinary Friday afternoon is because today was my last day at my old job. I've been at the same company the last 7 years and it's been great, but then last year there was a merger and ever since then, well, let's just say I'm kind of glad I'm moving on, but that is not to say I won't miss all of my awesome ex-colleagues. Today being my last day, my colleagues went out and got me some gifts, and there are some pretty funny ones in here. This one, for instance, it's a small Lego set. It's a boat, it's a guy, and it's a dog, so yeah, it's basically my life, right? And then they stuck a couple of Sail Life stickers on there, and then there are two small arrows down here pointing down to this text, which says, "Boat does not float." So yeah, this is just my colleagues playing one last cruel joke on me, because of course Athena doesn't float. There's also a bunch of nautical themed candy in here, or sailor themed, but unless you're from around here you probably don't know any of these. But these things right here in particular are delicious. And then there is recipes here that all include fish, which is always nice, and a pack of rum, and then there are these little guys. These are used for treating seasickness, and they are, of course, yet another joke played on me by my pesky ex-colleagues. On Wednesday, I'll leave to spend a week in New York City, but when I get back from that trip, I'll start at my new job here in Skive as a software developer. Now, there are several reasons I've decided to change jobs, but one of the big ones is the fact that this fits very neatly into my plan of becoming a full-time cruiser. For the last 5 years, I've worked as a project manager and as a team manager, but neither of those two jobs will earn me any money while cruising, so that is why I've decided to utilize my background as a software developer. And by going back to becoming a full-time software developer, I consider that a small step towards achieving my dream of becoming a full-time cruiser, just like when I purchased Athena and got started on the refit. Enough yammering on, let's get to some DIY stuff. And why don't we start out by taking a quick look at what I've been up to since the last weekend. The first thing I did was to fill in an old hole that was right here from an AC outlet. I did that because I also want an AC outlet right here, but I need a way smaller hole. I filled in this hole the exact same way I did with the hole from the old radio last fall, and that means the piece of plywood that's in here is glued in place with thickened epoxy, which of course means I've got a plastic container with a bit of thickened epoxy in it. I have absolutely no idea why, but for some reason it is super satisfying to remove thickened epoxy from plastic containers like this one here. And of course it also means I can now reuse this. Completely smooth and ready for paint. Speaking of paint, that is the other thing I've been focused on this week. I've painted the last pieces of the locker that'll sit above the chat table, or that's to say, I thought I had, because when I got to the boat this morning, I discovered what was supposed to be the final coat had some funny defects in it. I don't know if the camera is going to be able to pick it up, but if you look in this area right here, you might be able to see it. It's almost like that last coat of paint has cracked, and it's only in certain areas. It's very odd. I've used countless cans of this paint over the years, and I've never had anything like this happen to me before. This is another piece of the locker that sits above the chat table, and you might be able to see it here. And in fact, the entire surface finish on this piece is just horrible, to be honest. I don't know if it was something in the paint, something on the roller, or maybe there was some grease on the surface. I don't know. No matter the cause, I think the cure is the same. I'm gonna bring one of the pieces out on deck with me and just sand it back down so that it's flush at least, and then try reapplying another coat of paint. things just got even stranger. When I started sanding this, I noticed that the areas where the paint was cracked wasn't really adhered that well to the plywood, but the cracks only appeared when I applied the last coat of paint. Very odd, but yeah, I decided to take this back down to bare wood. I have a feeling I'll never really figure out what caused this, but if you guys have any suggestions, then just go ahead and leave them in the comments down below. It is a little bit of a shame that I had to sand away a week's worth of painting, but hey, stuff happens. I'm gonna haul ass back to Obelix because there's something I was hoping I could take care of today before I run out of daylight. Now that little something I was hoping to take care of is to move Obelix to her summer slip. The slip I'm in right now is not mine. I'm here because all of us liveaboards huddle together on this pontoon during the winter. But summer is just around the corner, so I need to move to my summer slip, which of course is on the complete opposite side of the marina. If I had a working engine, this would be really easy, but I don't. I mean, it's almost in working order. Keyword here being almost. Oh. Obelix is only a 30-foot boat, and she has a tiller rather than a wheel, so moving her on a calm night like tonight without an engine is not a big deal. And while doing it, you get a free workout. Whew. I mean, sure, we're not setting any speed records, but we'll get there.
Good morning, guys. It is Saturday morning. There was a little bit of a technical mishap last night. While I was flopping around out there in the middle of the marina, my camera ran out of battery, and of course my spare batteries were all up in the car. For a very brief moment I considered doing a retake, but I'm sure you guys get the idea. It's time to take this little guy for his morning walk, and after that we'll head over to Athena. I am very excited to see how that little paint sample from yesterday turned out, so let's head up and take a look. This looks perfectly okay, so I guess the only thing to do is to try and apply another coat and see how that turns out. Not having all of the pieces of the locker ready to be mounted does put a little bit of a kink into my plans for this weekend, but I'm sure we'll manage. I had hoped I'd be able to show you a finished locker here above the chat table this weekend, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. I'd even gone out and purchased a bit of mood lighting to mount underneath the locker here to make it look really nice. But why don't we go ahead and take a look at that mood lighting, even though the locker is not finished yet. This should contain some of those LED strips you see almost everywhere nowadays. I've had some mounted aboard Obelix for a couple of years and they've been great. I've only really had one issue with them, and I hope I won't have the same issue with these. To be more accurate, I've had two separate issues with the LED strips aboard Obelix. One is the color of the white light they put out. They're RGB LED strips, but the white light they put out is, well, a little bit off. But these LED strips should do a lot better with that. And then the other issue is keeping the LED strips from sagging, and this should fix that. I've cut this down to a more manageable size, and all this is just a small aluminum profile, and it's got a couple of grooves in there that you can slide a piece of plastic into. Of course, the idea here is that the LED strips are going to get mounted inside of this. That way, if the adhesive on the LED strips fail, they won't sag. The astute will no doubt note that it would have been a lot easier for me to mount this before I put up the locker, but The aluminum profile is going to get held in place by the tiny little stainless clips you see in here, and yes, it was fiddly as all heck to put them up after I had put up the locker, but honestly I just didn't think of putting them in before putting up the locker, so now I had to pay the price. The LED strip is going to sit here inside of the profile, but before I adhere this in place, I better just solder on the connections here at the end. This is an RGB and white LED strip, so it'll need a total of 5 connections on there, and this is about 1 meter, so this will use about 1 amp when running at full tilt, which it will rarely do, but I'll need to size the gauge of wire accordingly. God dang it! I thought I had some small gauge wire lying around here aboard the boat, but turns out the smallest stuff I've got is this stuff, and this is 1.5 square millimeters, which is way overkill for that LED strip. This stuff will handle easily up to 13 amps, and well, I need 1 amp maybe. And I don't think there's enough room for me to use this. Just for illustration purposes, I've gone ahead and cut 5 pieces of that 1.5 square millimeter wire, and as you can see, this wouldn't work. It doesn't fit. It kind of sucks that I won't be able to show you guys the finished locker this weekend, and I can't even show you the mood lighting, and the missus is none too happy about the missing mood lighting. She was really looking forward to that. But there is something else I can at least get checked off my to-do list this weekend. It's nowhere near as glamorous as a new locker or mood lighting, but what I can go ahead and do is to caulk the seams in the area where the stove is going to sit. That way, when I spill something while cooking, it won't seep into the plywood. I've finished painting the small spacers I made last weekend for the gimbal mounts, and with a little bit of luck, I should be able to finish the installation of the stove this weekend. But I don't seem to have the best of luck this weekend, so I'm not holding my breath. Oh, and this is just a tiny bit of alcohol to get rid of any grease before I start caulking the seams. I've masked off along the edges of the seams I'm gonna caulk. These 2 edges, this one and this one, they'll have to wait until tomorrow until this one and the one on the opposite side has fully cured. As for the caulk, it's nothing special. It's this stuff. You could use this for sealing up a sink or stuff like that. Fair warning, I am not that great at caulking, so after I'm done applying caulk, I'll use soapy water and copious amounts of paper towel to try and clean up the mess. But why don't we go ahead and give this a try? This is not perfect, but it'll do its job, and sometimes that's good enough. Tomorrow, once this has cured, I can do the other 2 seams, and then I can mount the stove. Oddly enough, the spacers I made last weekend for the gimbal mounts for the stove turned out perfectly okay, even though I used the exact same can of paint for these as I did for the locker. And speaking of the paint travesty of 2017, it looks like the second coat is perfect. Seeing as my plans for this video are shut to heck, I might as well just cross off a bunch of random stuff from my to-do list and see how much of it makes it into the video. This is the lid for the chat table, and this needs one last coat of glossy varnish. Before I apply the last coat of varnish, I want to sand this so that it becomes completely smooth and I get rid of any tiny indentations. One of you guys recommended that I picked up one of these rigid foam-backed sanding block thingies, so why don't I go ahead and give this a try? God dang it.
And I've managed to sand through the varnish. This is just not my weekend, apparently. I guess some weekends things just don't work out. I'm going to apply a coat of varnish to that lid, and then I'm going to run as fast as I possibly can to get out of here before I accidentally cause the boat to explode or spontaneously combust. Going by my luck this weekend, this box might contain, well, anything but the varnish that's supposed to be in there. Ah, well, at least that's good. Good morning, guys. It's Sunday morning. Things haven't really been going my way this weekend, but I'm hoping today things will be back to normal. Before leaving the boat yesterday, I applied a third coat of paint to my little sample here, the piece of the locker, and there are no issues here. This is perfect. I'm starting to think the defects I saw was not caused by the paint, so it must have either been the roller or some grease or dirt on the surface of the plywood. Either way, it's great that there are no defects in this, because that means I can go ahead and get started on painting the area underneath the starboard settee where I patched up that hole from the old AC outlet. Now that we're on the topic of painting again, there's something I want to show you. I've received a few comments asking why I apply as many coats of paint as I do, and I've prepared a small sample to show you over here, right underneath Wilma. Up here I've applied 1 coat, then 2 coats, 3 coats, and finally 4 coats. Looking at this, 1 coat is clearly not enough. 2 coats? Not really that great either. With a 3rd coat we're getting closer, but it's still not perfect. With a 4th coat of paint on there, it's really close. To the camera this might look perfect, and to the naked eye it's close, but a 5th coat wouldn't hurt. So the short answer to why I apply as many coats of paint as I do is, well, basically just to get the look I want. And also the manufacturer, which is Hempel, recommends 4 to 5 coats. So I'm able to get the look I want and also stick with the manufacturer's recommendations, which is perfect in my book. As most of you guys probably already know, the paint I'm using is called Multicoat and it's manufactured by Hempel. The reason I like this stuff is because it's not super glossy, it's a nice matte finish, and it's held up really well aboard Obelix. Even in the galley where it gets splashed with hot oil and stuff like that, you can scrub it and clean it. So I think this is a good choice in the long run. I know there might be paints where I could get away with applying less coats of paint, but considering the limited amount of painting I actually need to do, it's not that big of a deal. And I'd rather stick with this because I know this paint and I know I'll be pleased with the result in the long run. Before I start painting, I wanted to take a quick look at the lid for the chart table, and it looks pretty good. Of course, I will still have to apply a few more coats of varnish, seeing as I got a little bit eager with the sandpaper yesterday. I finished masking off the area and I'm ready to start painting. But just in case you're curious, the hole down here, that's for a manual bilge pump. There are 2 manual bilge pumps here aboard Athena, one in the saloon and one out in the cockpit. The hole simply just gets covered up by a small piece of teak with a tiny bit of adhesive on it, and then if you ever need the bilge pump, God forbid, you just pop off that piece and start pumping. One of the good things about Hempel's Multicoat is the fact that it goes on really fast. Ta-da! Just as soon as I've got a few more coats of paint on there, it's gonna look absolutely perfect. I am just about to call it quits for this weekend. I've gotten a bunch of random stuff checked off my to-do list. I don't know how much of it is going to make it into the video, but hey, at least it's nice to get stuff checked off my to-do list, right? I want to thank those of you who suggested alternatives to this cable that I showed you in the last video. I have found a cable that I'll use instead of this, and I've ordered 200 feet of it. I'll pick that up next week, and that means in a couple of weeks I should be ready to start rewiring the AC, which I've been very much looking forward to. I know this video has been a little bit of a mixed bag of everything, but hey, sometimes my plans just don't work out. Next weekend, I'm going to be in New York City, but I have recorded a video I can publish for you guys next weekend. That video will take a look at some of the upcoming projects this summer and also a look at what this entire project has cost me so far. Okay guys, that is going to be it for this video. Remember, if you've enjoyed this video, hit that like button, and as always, feel free to leave a comment down below. See you!